Hello, Fuel Milwaukee. Good afternoon. Come on in the space and welcome to today's Race Bridge webinar. As you all know, Fuel Milwaukee has been hosting the Race Bridge conversations throughout the spring and summer, and we're so glad to be here at the end of September. We're now going into October, continuing these conversations around race and racial equity. All kinds of people participate in the Race Bridge conversations of all backgrounds, races, genders, ages, and I really appreciate all of you being here and continuing to participate with us in the conversation. For those who don't know me, my name is Corey Jo Biddle, and I'm the Executive Director for Fuel Milwaukee. And today we are talking about the decision that was made on the Briana Taylor case. Many of you who are on social media or watching the news know that this is top of mind for a lot of folks today. And because of that, we decided to shift our gears a little bit and focus on that decision and people's reactions to it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see our panelists today. I put out a last minute call this morning to folks to say, you know, I know all of us are thinking about this right now, and many people are feeling a lot of different things: anger, sadness, depression, frustration. And I just had this feeling that we just needed to talk about it. And this is one of those days and one of those situations that the world is watching, and folks are looking to talk about it. You'll notice that the panel is all Black women, because it has been Black women on the forefront of calling for justice for Breonna Taylor, although our entire community and world has been doing the work to make sure that people say her name and know her name. So with that said, I'm gonna move into having the panelists introduce themselves and tell a little bit about who they are and what this moment means to them. So give us your name, talk to us a little bit about where you're from, and then try to give us a couple of words about what you're feeling right now in this moment. And Marjorie, I'm gonna start with you.
Hey, my name is Marjorie Rucker. I was raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I just feel like a Black woman in America today. I mean, yeah, that's how I feel.
How about you, Bethany?
Hi, I'm Bethany Chris. I was born and raised in Milwaukee. I live in DC now, and I'm done. I'm done.
Dorinthia?
I'm Dorinthia Robinson. I've been in Milwaukee for about 16 years now. That's hard to believe. In terms of how I feel today, I guess Bethany took the first thing that came to mind. So I guess that I'll say that I just feel like I'm over it at this point.
How about you, Shannon?
I was originally born in Chicago, and I've been in Milwaukee most of my life. And my one word reaction would be, meh. I don't really have a reaction. I just feel numb. So.
Tiffany Henry?
Corey, thanks for having me on with some amazing Black women and being representative of Black women. So I think, you know, it doesn't even matter where I'm from. We in America. And right now, Black women, Black people are being targeted more than ever. And so, you know, my word for today as I got up was enough. You know, enough of this pandemic. And I'm not just even talking about COVID. I'm talking about enough of this pandemic of us being targeted and assaulted and killed and murdered and violated, all of that. So it's enough.
And Tiffany Cobb.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thanks, Corey Jo, for having me on this call. Very honored to be in the midst of all of you all. I think for me, one word that I would sum up how I'm feeling today is heavy. Just being a person that does this work in a day-to-day, advocating for racial equity, and to have this transfer over into your everyday life, just as a Black woman in general, and then having the weight of what's going on in the world fall upon with this verdict I definitely was sum that feeling up to just feeling heavy.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of a word. I feel chaos. That's probably the word that describes best how I feel, because I feel so many different things and they are hard to articulate. And I feel frustration that the things that are so clear to us, that frustrate us or frustrate many so clearly, other people are still seeming not to understand or pretending not to understand. And that really is very frustrating for me. So I want to thank all of you again for being here. We got about 200 attendees on the call. We'll probably have about 1,000 folks that at least take a look at a part of this on Facebook. Feel free to share from the Fuel Milwaukee Facebook page this conversation. In this Zoom platform, we're able to see your comments. So participants, go into the chat right now and give us your one word. What's the one word that you have that you would use to describe what you're feeling right now after the Breonna Taylor decision? And as you're doing that, I just kind of, know that everybody that is participating is going to be at a different place of understanding with not only the things that we're going to talk about in this hour, but the details of the case. And I'm going to share this video because I really thought Joy Reid did a great job of explaining a lot of this on Jimmy Fallon's show. I'm going to just play the part where she's recapping what happened in the case all the way up to the decision, and then I'll come back to you to get your reactions, okay?
And welcome to the Tonight Show. Today, the Kentucky grand jury announced their decision regarding the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor 6 months ago. Obviously, this is a very emotional time, a very difficult time. So tonight, we'd like to start the show by speaking to our first guest about today's news and what it means for our country. We're so grateful to have her join us tonight. Please welcome from MSNBC, Joy Reid. Joy, thank you for coming on and talking to me tonight. A decision in the Breonna Taylor murder case came in today, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Can we first talk a little bit about who Briana Taylor was? She was an EMT. She was an aspiring nurse.
She was only 26 years old. This is, the woman in the Black Lives Matter kind of panoply of people who've been killed by police. And she was the last one really to be spoken about, which for a lot of Black women was really grating that, everyone was following the George Floyd case and all of these other cases and Ahmaud Arbery and everything else. But, here was this 26-year-old EMT who was serving her community, who had this, all these aspirations and dreams and was her sister's best friend, and had really changed her life and found a career that she loved, found a man that she loved, and then she was just cut down in her apartment. So basically, Briana was asleep, according to her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, and then they just heard a noise. They heard somebody break in, or at least he did. The facts as put together are partly come from his call to her mom saying somebody broke in and shot Briana, which indicates that he didn't know that it was police. And because Kentucky is an open carry state and he is a licensed, firearms carrier, he took out his gun to defend his girlfriend and himself from what he thought were intruders. He fired a shot, and the 3 police officers who had come to, they're saying it was not a no-knock warrant because they're claiming that they knocked and they said that it was police. But you have to remember, Jimmy, this was about 12:30 a.m. So this is when most people are asleep.
Wow. And
so these officers burst in and then they start shooting. They say that they shot in self-defense because Kenneth Walker shot at them. But again, he shot at an intruder. The police fire back. One of the officers, the one who was charged today, just starts shooting. He doesn't even come into the apartment. And those bullets spray everywhere. They spray into other apartments. Some bullets are lodged into other apartments. And after Breonna is hit 5 or 6 times, that's been a matter of dispute, Mr. Walker is not hit at all. He calls the mom and says, someone shot Briana. Briana Taylor dies. And then we just have these series of actions that are extremely questionable. Action number one is no action. No one tries to help Briana. She's laying on the floor. She is not the target of any investigation. She's committed no crime. She's bleeding on the floor. No one renders aid. Police, they start, getting their own stories together. Action number two, later on, not long after that, the boyfriend is actually charged with a crime. They try to charge Kenneth Walker with attempting to assault the police officers for shooting toward them and injuring one of them in the leg. They eventually drop those charges because of the public outrage. It says, you've got to be kidding. And action number three, the person that they say they were investigating, his name is Jamarcus Glover. He's the ex-boyfriend of Breonna Taylor. He was in custody already. On the night of this raid, he'd already been arrested. So they weren't going there to look for him. They say they were investigating drug deals he was involved in, and they try to get him, somebody who is already incarcerated. And they say, we'll let you out. We'll give you a break. But you need to say that Briana Taylor was involved in your drug ring. If you say that, we'll let you out. And don't ever say there's no honor among thieves. There is a lot more honor, I think, that was in that jail cell than there was among the police, because he said, I'm not doing that. I'm not implicating Briana in a crime. She was not involved in anything that I was involved in. She had nothing to do with it. They weren't even dating anymore.
Wow.
So I think what you have is a police department that allows these officers to go in to try to search this apartment, which they're claiming that the ex-boyfriend used to use as a previous address. He had listed it as his address. And so that gives them the right to bust in and start shooting. And today, what the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, said is everything that happened regarding the shooting was perfectly legal. Coming in at 12:30 in the morning, shooting Briana Taylor 6 times while she's in her bed, shooting at her boyfriend, and then shooting back at him because he's in his castle trying to defend it. And all of that is fine. Not rendering aid is all fine. The only thing that was illegal was Officer Hankinson didn't aim. And because he didn't aim and shoot Briana Taylor with good aim, and he shot around and put bullets into 3 other people's apartments, he is guilty of endangering the lives of the people in the other apartments. So today what we saw was nothing regarding Briana Taylor. No crimes were committed, according to the Attorney General. The only crimes that were committed were minor crimes of endangering the neighbors.
So I'll stop there. I'll share that link in the chat for people who want to see the rest of her comments. I really was moved by the comments that she shared after, because she had a conversation with Jimmy that we're going to have right now with each other. Marjorie Rucker, I'm going to start with you as our resident lawyer in the group. What were you feeling and thinking, as I know you were following this story and the case yesterday? What were you thinking?
So I've been following it since it became like high profile, which was even before, Mr. Floyd. And my thoughts were a couple of things. Qualified immunity just needs to go. Kentucky's basic laws need to change because regular citizens have the right to literally clear other people and are protected if they do so in a place like a home. So I think that, then you have qualified immunity, which applies to government officials. So basically when they do something wrong, you cannot personally hold them liable to that. And then the police have an extra layer of protection called color of law, which is federal regulation that was started back in the late 1800s, 1900s. It's been perfected, and Supreme Court's done a lot of work around that. So I wasn't surprised by the results yesterday on, if you take a look at the law on its face. However, I will say I was surprised that, not even surprised, I was disappointed in the fact that nobody tried to find anything. I mean, there's so many small things that these officers could have been brought up on, even if you want to just put in, you know, qualified immunity or color of law. There were tons of things that they did wrong. I mean, we really don't even know the real facts of the case, right? Because Brianna's not here to tell us. Of course, you know, the police have built this case around not telling what the true intent was of even, you know, going into the apartment, much less known the actions that they took. So when you have a case as murky as this, it makes it hard. But there are so many small things that I think the AG and Brianna's attorneys could have maybe tried to pull up to try to get something to stick, no matter how minor. The issue, though, again, is the law, and the activism needs to be around changing or leveling qualified immunity and color of law, so that all people are treated and seen with dignity and respect, no matter what the circumstance or the encounter is. And once that happens, I think that we will start seeing the reform that we want to see, so that we can, with the, I'm not going to say security, because we're not secure, right? Like we know what we deal with on an everyday basis, but that we can coexist and not wonder when we leave our homes, are we going to return in the way that we left them, right? Or are we going to be severely harmed? Are we going to be killed? Are we, right? So we need to start really having those discussions and start that advocacy at the top down, because that's where you start the dismantling of what we're seeing today.
Tiffany, I saw you, Tiffany Henry, I saw you nodding there. Marjorie mentioned advocacy, and I know you've been very active on the civic action front, marching, posting, legislation, just on all fronts. Talk to us a little bit about your reaction and any reaction you have to what Marjorie was saying.
Yes, that's a good question. So yesterday, you know, I think prior to even yesterday, we were aware that something was coming. Just even with the settlement that was announced, even with the police there in Louisville making the announcement that they were under an emergency, city emergency, and the actions they were taking behind that. That was symbolism for a decision is coming, and the decision is not going to be good. So I was still trying to prep myself, but I was also trying to stay optimistic that something would happen, because you think, just with all of what has just gone on, but particularly with this case, that we would see or we would hear something that was going to be positive in the direction of getting justice. Well, huge slap in the face for all of us who were thinking that, and all of us who just had that, you know, sometimes you just have that feeling that right can still win out if you just hold on. That's something that my grandmother and my father used to say. Right will always pay out if you just hold on. And so that was me. But then when the decision came, and I'm watching the Attorney General, I'm watching and hearing, and I'm connecting what's being said. And for me, I feel like I'm a smart person, but I feel like I lost all intelligence in hearing this, because it was an insult to my intelligence. It was an insult to all of our intelligence, watching and hearing the basis of where they even came to this from. I'm not a legal mind and don't choose to be to, but at the same time, I do have sense enough to know that this ain't right. And we have to call a spade, that you guys have planned this. It was orchestrated to ensure that this woman would not seek justice. It was saying that we're going to send a message, a continued clear message, that we're not going to be supportive. We're not going to seek justice and get justice on behalf of Black women. I want people to hear that very clear. So that was my reaction as a Black woman. I'm sitting on my computer, working remotely from home, having a privilege that Brianna didn't have, to be able to work from home, because she was seeking a career, a lifestyle that was going to be in support and service to the public. And she can't even get that rendered in return to her. She can't even get dignity rendered in return to her. So all of that frustration just came over me, and I closed this laptop and I said, I'm done for the day. And I'm a processor, so the processing is all now start to come out now. But the tears are just there. And then I shifted from, because my life is where I'm working, and then I have made it a point to be, this is day 119 of what we now say day of action, of going to the streets and being with the people who I love and getting that energy, but also recognizing that when we're out there, the purpose has to be still connected to justice, even though we're not seeing it, but not giving up on that and still saying that this is the demand and this is what we want. You're still gonna value us. And so I appreciated even just the energy, the words, the exchange that was shared out there on behalf of us as Black women. Because I say, while we have to protect Black women, we defend Black men. That's a real thing when we talk about protecting Black women, protecting us, not even just protecting us physically, but protecting our mental space. So that way we can face everything else that this world will present to us. And so we already have our own dynamics that we're dealing with internally. I know I do. But then to see that the price, that I'm not even worth more than 12 million, one, and you think that's enough to give to my mama too. And then 3, you're gonna turn around and then not even tell my mama and tell this world that my life is valued enough that you're gonna arrest, convict, charge everything under the sun to these officers who came and I was asleep. Come on. That the wall behind me is valued more than the blood that runs through my veins. Yeah, enough.
It's enough. Bethany or Dorinthia, I saw that you both unmuted. Either one of you can jump in.
Dorinthia, you go ahead.
So the interesting thing is that at this point, it's like the conversation has changed. We all have been a part of or heard of the conversation that parents have with their Black children. You know, when you see the police behave in this way, make sure that you aren't provoking, make sure that, and even taking a conversation to another level, go to school, stay in school, do well, go to college, get a good job. We've had those conversations. Many of us have done those things. And the unfortunate piece is that even in doing all of that, you can still die by being at home, sleeping in your bed. It's like, okay, so there's basically nothing I can do. I just basically have to accept the fact that the color of my skin puts a target on my back. Regardless of what the situation is, I may lose my life. And not only that, there may be no justice in the loss of my life if a certain individual in a certain uniform does it. There's no justification. Like, to go from, it's one thing for you to say that the cops are justified and they don't have to pay for taking the lives of so many people. That's bad enough. But then, like, I read something today that was saying that they're really working to have Kyle Rittenhouse from Kenosha have his case. They're really building his case to shape him as a patriot. And he just did what he had to do to protect his life because he was in danger. So that's what he had to do. And it's like, when does it stop? At what point does it stop? It just doesn't matter to anybody seemingly at this point when a Black life is taken, regardless of the situation. As soon as it happens, it's a matter of, well, She must have done something. She had to be involved in something. She had to live. But a young white kid can take someone's life and, oh, he had to protect himself. He was in danger. It's like, to have these things happening right now today, playing out in media for everyone to see, you can't deny what's happening. And if you do deny it, then we know that you are a part of the problem right now.
Bethany?
I completely agree with that. So normally I'd be sitting on my couch in my living room, but I'm at work right now, and I'm, aside from being genuinely enraged and broken and the myriad of other emotions that I'm experiencing, I'm looking at the city of Louisville, the state of Kentucky, and the United States of America. I'm literally, the White House is 2 blocks over that way from my office. And I'm looking at all these players and I'm thinking, there is literally nothing left for Black people to lose. My daughter is sitting here in my office with me. And if I don't even have the comfort and the knowledge of knowing that we are safe in my home, that we as Black women are safe in our homes in the middle of the night, where do I get comfort from? Where do I get reassurance that this United States, these United States are protecting and defending and valuing my existence as much as the Kyle Rittenhouses, as much as any white person in America? If I don't have that assurance, there's nothing left to lose. And so this indictment is a massive slap in the face to Black America. Like a slap in the face in the most insulting and egregious of ways possible. Because it's, as we've been saying, it's valuing property over our lives as Black women. It is valuing property more than our humanity. And if my humanity doesn't matter to you, let me back this up a second. So in school, I spent my school time studying and focusing on colonialism and post-colonialism and what does it take to break that control, also neocolonialism. And as you study this, you see the classic examples throughout history of uprisings. And they always happen when people have nothing left to lose, nothing left to lose. When the very last thing you have to lose is your own life. And if people are pushed to that point, we're going to see that same exact uprising across the nation of not just Black people, but all the other people whose lives will be impacted. Because if nobody stands up for us, it's going to happen to them too. We've seen that example throughout the Holocaust. So if nobody stands up for us but us, they're going to come after Black men. After that, they will come after the Latinx community, going on and on and on until white women, it reaches you. And we have some real life Handmaid's Tale. So I'm trying not to go off on a tangent. I'm trying not to break down in rage tears right now, but I need you all to understand how infuriating this is and how it's not just the lives of us as Black women, of this panel of Black women. It is literally your life too that is at stake and is not valued, because the founding of this country made priority the lives of white, rich men. And we are a step and a half away from that being the priority again. And it is on all of us to band together to defend the promises that America made to us. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Nothing wrong with it. Tiffany Cobb.
Yeah, I think definitely agree with everyone's comments, and I just feel like it's very clear that this system was not designed for us. We as Black people have never been seen as human, and we see that throughout our Constitution and our history, and we've always been seen as property. And so the decisions of this case kind of emphasizes that. And I think the other cases that, and just the things that we've been seeing in the media so frequently, it's really just like someone else said earlier, a slap in the face as far as what where our country is. And I think for me, I'm just frustrated with the peacefulness of the movement and the tactics that our leaders have been pushing. And I think that it's just draining, like the conversation is draining. We've been having these conversations for decades. We saw that, you know, in the 60s, there was a lot of movement and rioting. And I just feel like everyone has their role to play. As Black women, we have a specific role to play as things fall differently on us with the positionality that we bring. But I feel like there's definitely different tactics to this. The protesting and the rioting, it serves its purpose, but I think that we have to move beyond that, as we've been doing that for a while and it's not working. And as we continue to see our bodies fall in the streets, at the hands of police, it's very clear that we need to reorganize and consider what we're doing and think about even how our country was founded on, and thinking about the Boston Tea Party and how a lot of that revolved around violence, and where ships were burned down to send a message to England and the Parliament. I personally don't think that the protesting is effective. I think that we need to do more. I think we need to be more organized, and we need to be more strategic, and we need to hold our electeds accountable. We need to hold our communities accountable. Obviously, everyone doesn't have the same agenda as we put them in these positions, but I think when we think about the systems and the infrastructures that allow these things to happen, those are funded with resources. And we need to make sure and ask the question, are our elected leaders, how are they contributing to a system that's designed to dismantle? How are they contributing to a system that is designed to keep us disenfranchised? Are they helping to uphold it, or are they dismantling? And we need to have the courage, if they're not doing what we need, to vote them out. And I think that ties into the whole idea of different tactics, the protesting and rioting. Those are one aspects of the movement, but then there's also the voting piece, and there's also other tactics that need to be happening. And I think that what's missing is the organization within our own communities locally, but then within the national front as well.
Corey Joe, can I ask a question? And I don't mean to, and I want, because we in the virtual living room, right?
That's right.
But I want to know from my sisters on the call, why are we trying to leave what it is that we need to do to the system at large? Meaning this system has not protected us. When not even 400 years, we became integrated, 60 years ago, right? And everything that we do when we make a stride, we're automatically put back into our place, whether it be through legislation, whether it be through microaggressions, whether it be through systems and practices designed through every facet of our lives, right? We're not just talking about police here, we're talking about everything. So from boardroom, communities, where you can live, etc. So why do we put that onus on others to figure it out for us? Like, I think the onus on others, and this is my personal opinion, but I want to hear from you all, is that we need to do the work first at home. So prepare our families, our children, our units, and get those centralized so that we know how we can make this better. But I think it goes to the advocacy of just being treated with dignity and respect, right? I don't expect someone who, for even up to, last 400 years, but the last 60 would do the right thing now. Mm-hmm. Right, just based on my knowledge. Like I don't have that expectation. So knowing that, what do you all think we need to do better as Black women, knowing that we are the central core of our communities, our families, everything external that comes from us and has for generations? How do we work towards that? Because government ain't gonna do it. I don't care if it's local, elected. I mean, elected officials have to serve everybody, right? They can't just put the Band-Aid on who's bleeding. So I don't believe that there can be a large scale anything that can happen within the next year or two. It would literally be our grandchildren making those strides on, you know, top down and then at the bottom too. But what do? Knowing that our lives don't matter, that anybody can come in and kill us while we're asleep and say, oops, we had the wrong house. Maybe our bag, here's a little money to, you know, help the mom so she can live a better life, but we're not gonna take any blame or admit that any wrongdoing.
I just had, Marjorie, you hit the nail on the head. And I think as a mother of three, so I had to step off camera and go get my tissue because I was thinking y'all was gonna make me cry about this. I just feel like as a mom, it's super important for us to allow our children to have that growth and development. I feel so different than my niece. I can give you a little bit of an example of how I feel like what restored my hope a little bit, because my hope was lost with Sandra Bland. I was done because that was definitely me. Why are you pulling me over? What did I do? This is what we doing for a traffic stop? Really? Seriously? Like that would have been me. That was me. That was me. I have a picture of her in my bedroom. So my hope was gone then. But I'm driving down Brown Deer, going east, taking my niece. They live down in Glendale. She's 13. We had just came from a birthday party and I got pulled over. Didn't realize my plates were expired because guess what? It's COVID. I haven't been driving. Without even asking me, she instantaneously started recording. I had to think back. Shannon on Hubbard and Locust at 13, were you pulling out your camera to record the police? I wasn't. I didn't even know that they were the enemy. So for her to already have that ingrained in her childhood, to me, I think that what you said, they're going to be the ones that make the change. It won't happen with us. It'll definitely happen with those generations that are coming behind us because they've seen more than we could ever have imagined seeing. And I also wanted to just hit on the point that you said, Corey, when you first started, pretend. They don't pretend. They really, really, really don't know. They live so far in suburbia that you would think it was Stepford wives. They have absolutely no idea how it feels to walk around in constant fear every single day. They're whistling and like skateboarding and having a great time and drinking Chardonnay and like, they have no idea of what it feels like to see police, over-policing of your neighborhoods. They have no idea of what that 13-year-old girl sitting next to me felt having to pull out her camera for a simple traffic stop on Brown Deer. What was her thought process that my auntie could potentially die today for nothing? Like in at Schwabenau, their kids are not thinking about that. They're just not. Oconomowoc and Ozaukee County, their kids don't even have to whip the phone out. If they whip the phone out, it's to do a TikTok. Like I feel so, Bethany, when you were talking, I was like, okay, you and me, we probably on the same, because I feel rage a little. So I've been staying sheltered because I feel rage. And I do feel, TJ, that we need to do something different than what we've been doing because I'm done talking. I'm not going to talk to you about nothing else no more. Couldn't be me. I don't want your money. You can keep your $12 million. You're going to need it. That's how I feel.
I want to, you mentioned about, you know, the next generation and their role in this. And I feel like something that's been missed around, I think there's this notion that, you know, what's happening now, like we have no input or we have no ability to address what we're seeing, because I think people are just feeling fatigued. But I think that the time for us to really execute on the things that it's not just up to the next generation. I think that we have to play our role in what's happening present day, just as we saw with history. We have to continue passing the torch, but we can't set the torch down and wait for the next generation to pick it up. And I think that that is what has happened. I think that there was some progress and momentum lost coming out of the 60s for a bunch of different factors, but I think that the momentum that we have here needs to be sustained so that as our kids come up, they can continue, so that we can continue making progress. And I know for me in my household, what we're teaching our the younger generation to do is teaching them how to educate themselves. Obviously, our generation or this upcoming generation has access to the world in ways that we haven't. And so being able to help them understand how to educate themselves, again, not relying on the system. We send our kids to school to get a certain education that doesn't always serve them as needed. And so being able to figure out how to empower themselves through education, but also through health and safety, and teaching them how to use firearms as children. We know that our counterparts are teaching their children how to do that as well. And so really just being able to protect ourselves, empower ourselves through education, safety, and health is a way that we can build our next generation up so that we aren't relying on others, and we can empower our own households as well as our community. And then that can translate into wherever they decide to go out and place themselves in society, whether it's an elected official, whether they're working for a foundation, whatever it is, being able to set those values foundations and develop that skill set so we can push them out into society and they can play their role in this movement. Because it's not going to be a flip of a switch and everything's just going to be great. It's ongoing, and we're going to have to continue to prepare. We're going to have to continue that by preparing the next generation.
TJ,
Yeah.
amen to that. And then I want to say amen to Black people. It is your Second Amendment too. I am registered to own a firearm out here in Maryland. You need to register to own a firearm as well, or several. It is your Second Amendment. Beyonce said it in Daddy Lessons. Girl, it's your Second Amendment too. But to backtrack a little bit, and I want to get on the question that Marjorie asked. I think that where sometimes movement miss the step is that we end up trying to replicate things that were done, the things that are textbook that were done. So yes, an injustice happens, people run out, get on the streets, march and protest, okay? But now people understand better that the protests and the grassroots mobilization have to coincide with organizing strategies that target both legislation, target voter registration, target a myriad of other things. But where we're missing the step, at least in my opinion, where we're missing the step is we're doing all these things that we're replicating from the historic civil rights movement without the backdrop, the historic international backdrop. Because in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the United States was not an imperial power.
That's right.
Working to that point, but we were not an imperial power. So this nation still had to save face and put up a front of morality throughout the rest of the world. And you can't assert democracy. You can't assert that you're bringing liberation to people around the world if at home, your own citizens are oppressed and struggling and suffering. And I say that because today, we are an imperial nation. We already basically pockets are reliant on us to provide them with funds and resources. So you would think that there would be this chorus of nations standing up and speaking for Black people. You would think that there would be this chorus of nations saying, WTF, that Black woman was killed asleep in her bed and nobody is guilty of that. But it's not happening because we don't have this moral backdrop internationally. We, as Black people, don't have a world to appeal to on our behalf. So we have to rethink the strategy. If we're not appealing to the world and their sense of morality, then what are we appealing to? And we keep talking about the importance and the value of our lives, and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and now Briana Taylor. And we've got some of the conscience and the awareness of not just progressive or liberal white people, but we've got an inkling of interest and participation and understanding of white people who we wouldn't otherwise normally have had their attention. And that's going to be the resource that we use because we have nothing else to appeal to We literally have nothing else to appeal to. And I know that sounds hopeless, but like I'm seeing it as a hopeful sign, because in the backdrop of all of that, just as a side note, so Corey Joe knows I'm a career civil rights worker, and I work for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And there is currently a massive strategy session going on within the civil rights and racial justice community around qualified immunity, around police brutality, and what are the steps that we can take to alleviate and protect our people from centuries of oppression by targeting these big buckets. So I'm hopeful, but within this hope, we have to assess the international audience and who it is that we can appeal to. I was gonna say something else, but Corey knows I go off on tangents and I lose my train of thought.
I'm gonna jump in really quick, because I wholeheartedly agree to what's being said, and I want to bring some context to the protest, because I want people to walk away from those who are not familiar, who've never had any type of experience in protesting or the methods and all of those things. There's nothing wrong with the protest. The protest has to happen. And let's be very clear. I think I got muted. Okay, can y'all hear me? Okay, we have to make noise. We have to make people uncomfortable. Part of that is the people within the protest have to have a level of mental capacity to say, I'm gonna make myself uncomfortable first. That I have to sacrifice my uncomfortability for my comfort. I have to have a history, so meaning the historical context of why this is even necessary. And a purpose as to what's the goal in mind. That I'm not just out here walking, I'm not just out here making some noise and chanting and doing all those things. I have to connect it to now to what it is that we're truly seeking. And I agree to Bethany's point that the larger audience has to be not just America, it has to be internationally. They have to be sounding the alarm across all countries to say, we're gonna help in plotting, planning, mobilizing, and organizing with you, Black people, with you, Black women, with you, Black men, with you, Black children, the whole nine. And until that happens, and until that shift, that shake is happening internationally, yes, we won't see some of the current things that we're seeing now. We won't see them dismantled, because it can't be just left up to us. Along the lines of what TJ was saying, I don't want to leave any of these younger individuals who are involved in this protest, and younger individuals everywhere, even y'all's children. I don't want to leave that responsibility to them if we haven't given them a foundation that they're able to take this and take it to the next level. I ran track, so when I know I was third, so I knew what I had to do when I got it to the fourth person. And it was my responsibility to make sure that when I gave it to her, passed that baton to her, she carried it home. The gap that we missed was it wasn't that they weren't thinking of it, so I don't want anybody of our ancestors to ever think that I'm not appreciative, that we're not grateful of the work that they laid out for us, because that would be a huge slap in the face. But we do have to recognize that the energy, that the baton wasn't passed. And to be clear, to be honest, to be transparent, Tiffany, on a Thursday, that I think part of our crippling came when we integrated, because then we lost our way of life. We lost our way of sense of knowing that we as Black people can take care of our own, that we don't have to be dependent or codependent upon anybody else, that we could be dependent upon ourselves, because we've been taught, we got the resources. If our foremothers and forefathers could do it in the Harlem Renaissance, can create businesses. Bronzeville was how it looked. I wasn't even around, none of us was around, but we know, we could see that they could create these businesses, create blocks of just beauty. And they did it on nothing. That we could do it on all the resources that we have right now. That we just have to mentally connect and say to ourselves, you know what, we're gonna do what Black people know how to do, and that's make it happen. And we're gonna make it work. But to my larger point, understanding that yes, there has to be a shift, and to be clear that while we have recognized marching is needed, it's impactful, it's effective, but also connecting that to beating the streets in City Hall and making sure that they're not allowed to leave, that they hear us. We were in meetings this week at Common Council, making sure that they understand that we're not just a bunch of individuals who just out here trying to do something just to be doing it. We out here on purpose. We could be doing anything else, but this is real because real life people are being killed. Real life people are being discriminated against. Real life people are being profiled. Real life people are living in fear. What you did to Kyle, the same energy you did to Land, getting his behind from Illinois to Wisconsin, is the same energy you need to be taking upon this. And you're doing it intentionally. And what is that creating? That's creating a mindset continuously that you don't care, that you are intentionally saying that you don't care. So creating a path to let it be known that legislatively, this is what we need. This is what we're going to do. This is what has to happen. And even though we may not see it, but there are some things that we need to see right now, that we can't just delay and think that it has to be 20, 30 years from now. It has to be seen right now. We have to feel some of that investment that we're making. We have to feel that right now. So I just wanted to let that be known because I don't want anybody that's watching or hearing this to think that the protest doesn't matter. The methods of the protest have to shift, or I think we have to hit economically. We have to hit the economic impact of this country and let it be known that our dollar matters. Our dollar is needed. And you can't move, you can't do anything in this country without our dollar being in the midst of all of that. So until you respect our life, you don't get our money. Until you see us, you don't hear us.
And integration, integration happened because they needed our dollars. It had nothing to do with making us equal, right? It happened, and that's why I asked the question. And Tiffany, thank you for bringing it home. I was not saying that we don't need to be doing anything. Of course, we need to be making noise, and we need to be doing it, whether it be local protests, whether it's attacking things nationally through the work that like Bethany and those civil rights attorneys and whatnot are doing. So of course, that work needs to continue, and it's been happening before these 140 warning shots over the last 10 years have been taken on our Black and brown men, women, and children. So let's just be clear on that. This work ain't stopped. But I said that to say we as Black people also need to know, and we need to recognize and start educating each other that the work isn't just out there, it's internal too. And we need to start not only preparing our children educationally and whatnot, but financially, how to defend themselves, how, so it's one thing to have that difficult conversation about your encounters with the police, but let me be very, very clear, for our generation to strive knowing that it is literally open season on us. I mean, that's what it is to me, right? We have to do double duty and fight on the outside as well as internally. And everybody don't have the gut and the muster to get out there and do it, or they just don't have the time. But there are things that we all can be doing, at home. And I don't care if you're white, Black, or otherwise, to have those difficult conversations. But for Black families, it's so important because we have definitely lost our way. And, just basic textbook education and whatnot is not going to solve those problems.
And I wanted to
Go ahead.
It's important that we find our lane. So it's easy to say, well, what y'all doing ain't working. Or it's easy to say, well, the political officials, they ain't doing nothing anyway. They ain't gonna do what we want anyway, so who cares? It's easy to say, our organizations within the community ain't doing nothing. They've been there for all these years. They still ain't doing nothing. They still ain't making a difference. But the hard part is to say, if I feel that way about those entities, about those institutions, what can I do to change that? What skills and abilities do I have to impact the work that those positions are doing to make sure that change does come. If you don't want to run for public office, find someone who is doing a good job, who is running, support them. If you don't think that the social service organization was find your niche, get in there, start volunteering your talent, skills, and abilities to make a difference in that organization. There are things that we can do, but it's easy for you to just sit at home and say what someone else is not doing. It takes work to actually get in there to make a difference with the things that are being done. And that's a challenge that we all have to do. We all have to start supporting the right things. If 2 million people can sit online and watch a versus battle, you can do something to make a difference in the areas of our communities that are hurting right now and that need your input.
That's right. I was going to talk a little bit about everything that we're going through. And now my kids are old enough now, even though I don't really watch the news around them, or I thought I was shielding them from a lot of this, but they're like playing Roblox, and the kids in the Roblox world have on Black Lives Matter shirts, and then the other team got on All Lives Matter shirts. Like, these are little kids that are having these conversations at this level. So my kids are asking me a lot of questions, and I was having a conversation about what to say to our children and thinking about the way that I was raised. And my first introduction to racism, or anything in school was, of course, the lesson on slavery, right? And I remember the shame that I felt being one of the only Black kids in class, having this, this lesson about my ancestors be all about slavery. And all of a sudden, all the white kids are looking at me, and I'm thinking that they're thinking, wow, you would have been a slave if this was back in the day. And the shame that followed me through school, even though I have always been a proud Black person, I, like many of us, code switched and, spoke a certain way in front of certain white people, dressed a certain way to be accepted, wear my hair a certain way at work as not to be singled out, and thought to be militant. And I don't know that there was any direct education to me as a young Black woman to say, don't do that. You don't have to do that. Or this is what you're going to feel, and this is what racism feels like, and this is what it feels like to be the only Black kid in class, or the only Black kid in your college, or the only Black person in the conversation, and the discussion turns towards race and racism, and you're the only Black person there. We don't have that kind of education in our generation anyway. And now I'm thinking differently about how I raise my kids, because we already know what they're up against, right? We know what we give them the education about, if the police pull you over, we know exactly what to do. I'm reaching for it. We tell them exactly what to do, but we don't tell them how to handle microaggressions, what that feels like, what it looks like, achieving and working hard, and then have somebody say they only hired you because you're Black. I'm bringing it back full circle to work in the world and everything that we do, because I feel like we have integration was the start, but we worked so hard to fit in and to be accepted. And I think that there's been this belief. When Bethany and I were working at the Black Holocaust Museum, there was an 80-year-old woman that came into one of our exhibits, and we were talking about, I think we were doing a film screening on a civil rights film. And she said to me after the fact, I am so sorry, because our generation dropped the ball. That's exactly what she's 80 years old. I wish I could remember her name. And she said, we dropped the ball because we didn't think that y'all were gonna have to keep having to fight. They thought that they had achieved it and everything would be the way they envisioned it would be realized with our generation, and that didn't happen. And that's kind of where I am now with my kids. It's like trying to have this balance. My son asked me, are all white people bad? He's 9, and it's like, what did he say? He said, are white people bad? He didn't say all, he said, are white people bad? And I didn't know how to answer it. It's like I couldn't answer it without a caveat, because I don't want to say what was said to me No, no, no. Everybody's equal. Everybody's gonna. You just work hard and you'll be fine. Because I know that that's not true. You know. So how do I tell a 9-year-old all white people aren't bad, but watch your back? You know what I mean? It's like it's 6 months ago. I probably wouldn't even have said that in the mixed audience of mostly white people. But that is how I feel. It's my reality. I think it's what the world is starting to see about the way that Black people feel, that we have to have a distinction of white people who are white allies. These are the white people who actually care about Black lives, and they get a title and workshops, and you know, it's like, it's overwhelming to me. But I feel like there's nothing that we can do other than just be real about what we're experiencing and what we're seeing. And the reason why I say a lot of white folks are pretending that they can't see is because even when you explain to them ad nauseum, or when they see example after example after example, I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance. I don't know if it's just they don't, you know, I just feel like there's no way that you don't see this.
And I just wanted to speak on that, Corey. First off, when I was sitting next to my niece, who again is 13, and she whipped her camera out, that hope that I felt was not to, hey, let me toss this bag of BS on your shoulders, little girl. It wasn't that. It was just like, man, okay, so that just gave me a whole awareness of pulling me out of my despair of seeing Black women and Black men and Black children persecuted in the street to no avail. So it just refueled my hope. But in talking to her about kind of what's going on, and in talking to my 3 sons too, because I raised my sons on partially on 35th and Hour, which is in the central city. I don't come from like the suburbs. And so on 35th and Hour, you know, they do heavy policing, like squads of police come down the street and they pat down everybody. I don't care who you are. If you're over the age of 7, they're going in your pockets. Mm-hmm. So what I had to do with them as young Black boys in this central city was not only reiterate constantly every single day that you are amazing. And I know mommies do this anyway, but I mean, I had to drill it in like, fam, I bow and curtsy to you because you are a king, and I am gracious. God graced me to be your mother. I had to elevate their egos and their, but I also, on the other flip side of that is, I also taught them that, not all of us was slaves. So I want you to know that Mansa Musa, and just all of these great kings and heroes and Black warriors and everything, I had to drill that into them. I paid each one of my sons $500 to read Before the Mayflower. If you got through that book and gave me a full report, here go $500 for you to do it. I don't care if you buy video games and pop rocks. You can use the money. You can burn it in the middle of the street if you want to. And they all did it. So for me, it was just reintegrating into them that this reality that we're in does not have to be your reality. It comes from within. You are a king. And I might have made one of my sons a little militant, but I mean, it is what it is. But I think that, as going back to Marjorie's point of, I like the fact that she posed to us, like, what do we do now? Okay, so this is where we at. So how do we solve this? What do we do to move forward? And what can we do with our children in order to be able to move forward? And that is, I feel like, what the blueprint. And then coming from that area, moving from a subdivision down into the inner city in a rental property, right? And seeing other kids who didn't have a mother and who didn't even know their fathers, and embracing those kids, I think it's gonna take a little bit of that. It's gonna take us taking our nieces and nephews, or taking your sons and daughters and getting them immersed in the community around individuals who know what Black excellence is and how, and that's me kind of like what Tiffany said, is like sort of passing the torch, but not necessarily leaving the burden on them. So that's my opinion.
So I see there's some activity in the chat and some questions in the Q&A, but we are past 3 o'clock. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I see some of the attendees are always already jumping off because they have work to do and conference calls to make and business to handle. So if you need to hop off at this point, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna send this link to everyone that registered for today's conversation. If you aren't able to stay for, we're gonna go over a little bit. If you aren't able to stay for the overage in the Q&A section, don't worry, because you'll be able to watch on the replay. I'm gonna extend the same courtesy to the panelists. I know all of you are busy and have things to do. I'm thinking we'll probably take 10 more minutes and ask a couple questions, and I'll look through the chat really quick and see if there's anything, any thoughts I should elevate to you. If you can stay, thank you, that would be awesome. If not, I understand. So let me see, was there any other thing that somebody had on the tip of their tongue? Go ahead, Bethany.
I just wanted to say that thank you, Corey, for convening this space, because it's always, Black women have always had to fight for a place in the conversation. Like, when was that book published, that anthology? In the 80s sometimes. All of the women are white, all the Blacks are men, but some of us are brave. And it's a Black feminist cornerstone piece of literature that we all should read, not just Black women. You want to understand what it's like to be a Black woman, you should read it too. But I think that us constantly having to fight and assert our personhood, something we got to be prepared to continue to do. It's something I'm prepared to continue to do for my little one right over there. And spaces and conversations like this are vital in order to taking those next steps, because some of us are brave Black women.
Let me see. I'm gonna just show the book here. I'll share.
I'm gonna tag on to what Bethany said. I feel like I've been this nicey nice person for so long, and I still am so nice. But on this issue, it's like I can't conform anymore. I can't teach no more. I don't want to. It's either you get it or you don't get it. It's either you see it or you don't see it. And everybody's seeing it. They're making a choice on whether or not they want to do something about it. And this is not to say that, there isn't grace extended or love extended to anybody, but the grace and love is not being extended to me. It's not being extended to us. And so it's only so much that I can give. No matter what title I ever hold in life, the titles that I hold now, I always will continue to be a Black person. I will always be a Black woman. And that will always take precedence over anything else that I do. In any moment in time where I feel that I am boxed in or cornered, that I can't be a Black woman, is when I'm gonna fight to get out that box. Because that fight to get out of that box is representative of myself and my own freedom, but representative of the freedom that Black women need. To be able to speak and to be able to live and to be able to love and to be able to be. And I think our existence has to not be in question. And women always want to replicate what it is that we do and what we have. But then when it comes to our struggle, they don't want to take ownership of that. So you can't be a sisterhood if you don't want to really be a sisterhood and taking in what we have to really go through. What we have to go through for the day. What we have to go through even just to be who we need to be. Even to get up on a virtual. We're trying to get ourselves together to make sure. So I've been telling the people at work, you're going to get what you're going to get, baby, because this is what I am right now. And sorry, it ain't what you've been used to getting. But at the end of the day, I got to stay true to who Tiffany is and who Tiffany is evolving to be. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with you not being okay with it either. And you not understanding it because maybe it's just not meant for you to understand. And so I think for those who want to be, I know we use the word ally. I'm going to use the word co-conspirator because we need co-conspirators. If you're ready to be that, be that. Be ready to take direction Be ready to take guidance. Be ready to ask, how can I assist? How can I help support? But don't come in and take over. And I'm saying that respectfully. Don't come in and take over. Come in and be a true co-conspirator, because your voice is needed. Your presence is needed in this. We tired of having to do it by ourselves. Now we can, but we shouldn't have to.
And I'll say, in terms of being an ally or a co-conspirator, just think about the things that you're saying at this point. I saw a post in a group last night on Facebook, and this lady had said that she was forming a protest because the sign said Halloween canceled, and she said she's forming a protest and she's inviting you and all of your kids to come. You can put your kids in costumes. We'll have adults, you can wear them too if you want to, and we're going to have our bags and our buckets, and we're going to walk through the streets about Halloween being canceled. And they were like, oh my God, that was so brilliant. Oh, that's so great. No, that's not great. That's insensitive right now. The levity of this situation should not be laughed at because you want to go trick or treat, which personally, I don't even know why people still do that anyways. This is dangerous. And anyway, but it's like, how insensitive can you be in this moment? And to see all of you jumping on the bandwagon and thinking, yeah, that's so clever. No, it's not. It's insensitive. And you shouldn't be doing it in this moment. And of course, I just took a little journey over to our Facebook page. There was no, of course, we all know who she's supporting in this moment. So it was like, okay, so I guess I kind of understand where that insensitivity is coming from. But it's those little things that you can do that you can say, hey, this is probably not a good idea right now. Hey, we probably shouldn't be saying things like this. Or I was in a conversation with, of course, I was the only Black person on the call, and they were joking about how people are swatting right now. This conversation happened yesterday. Have you seen where people swat in their car? They have the police come to your house, and it's all a joke while you're playing this game, and everybody's watching, and they're kind of funny. No, that's not funny to me as a Black person.
So I just want to add,
as Tiffany said, it's okay. As Tiffany said, I'm tired of having to educate you on how insensitive something like that is, particularly in today's climate. So it's just those little things that could also help to support the work that we're trying to do at this time and to support us as individuals.
Okay, then one thing to add to the whole co-conspirator ally piece too, I think is as you like look to position yourselves as that, be okay with giving up your own privilege and your own power for the greater good, because I think that a lot of people are moved by everything that's going on and they feel it, but when it really comes down to it, you really have to be willing to give up your own power, your own privilege for the greater good, for the equity and equality that we're all fighting for.
I have one more piece. I'm sorry, Corey. You know,
No, that's perfect. Go ahead.
I co-sign to everything that was just said. Dorinthia, I want to take it one step further than insensitivity. It is cruelty. It is inhumanity. It is evil. And I don't know what your faith is, but in my tradition, that is sin. This nation is sinning against Black people and Black women especially. This is cruel. It is inhuman. And if you cool with this, then I question your humanity and I view you as evil. If you are cool and fine with the way Black America is treated.
Okay, so I just have one comment. I love you, Bethany. I mean, the only thing that you can be is evil. Like, how can you sit in and say that it was okay for a man to kneel on another person's neck for 8 minutes. Just let me put my, Karen, can I put my hands around your neck for 35 seconds with all my might? And I want all your friends to watch. You have to even think that that was okay, to even think that these things are okay, but it's been going on for so long. That's where my numbness comes in. I'm just numb. And I don't work in like a regular job. I was a contractor prior to COVID. And so I didn't necessarily get the microaggressions in the ways that you guys got the microaggressions that you may feel every day. I got them mostly in the construction industry, where you would go in and people wouldn't even, I have my hard hat on, they wouldn't even talk to me. They would talk to the males on my staff or the white guy on my staff, and then he would redirect them to me because I am the owner of the company. So it's just, I feel so overwhelmed, and I wish we could have more conversations like this, because I don't know what to do, but I feel like I want to do something. I don't know if that's protest. I don't know if that's, right now I'm trying to buy my kids some land so that they have something to fall back on. That's my thing. I'm getting my real estate license so that I can go out and purchase, so I know all the game. And I just feel like those are the little things that we can do as individuals to try to build our nation back. So I want to buy land for your kids and Corey for your baby and everybody, you know, like I just want us to have our own. That way we don't have to lean on anybody else. And that way we can move forward as a nation of people that are mightier and who have endured so much. And it's time for it to stop. I don't know. Sorry. But anyway, I just love your comment. And I love you ladies. And I've got to go.
All right, Shannon, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye, Shannon.
I'll just say this. I want us to start understanding and also walking in this power. Who we are, our seeds built this earth. Our existence built this earth. It didn't come from anybody else giving it to us or our privilege. Everything that you see manifested today in human form comes from a Black woman. That's history lesson 101. And that is it's not rocket science. It is all proof. It is there. We need to have that self-esteem and that power so that we know this, because it is true. The second thing is when we are in these rooms, whether it's boardrooms, whether it's meetings, and Corey Joe and I have talked extensively about me sitting in a meeting with folks that don't look like me or that do, and my voice gets silenced, but I still say what I have to say because it's important. Don't let that mental chain of what we were taught in our generation, and Corey Joe was absolutely right. Oh, it's okay, just work hard and whatever. No, you say what you got to say, and if you don't like it, then that's on you. That is not for me to take or absorb, and I'm not going to. I'm going to use my voice and my platform to do right by my people, because I know the importance of that work and what that can yield for our future generations. So ladies, thank you all so much for your insight. I wish we was like in the living room, COVID, like for real. But thank y'all so very much, because it was a pleasure just to talk to you all, see most of you. I haven't seen you in a while, and just to have this discussion, because it is so important. But do not dim your voice any longer. It is not going to get us where we need to be. So do not dim your voice.
Tiffany?
Yeah, to all of that. I know, because, just I felt it, I've done it, where I've oftentimes been in certain rooms and I felt uncomfortable by knowing the fact that I have something to say, but it's like, how is it going to be received? Child, that ain't going out the window now. Y'all about to get all of it. And realizing that, you probably don't like it. Who cares? It's okay. But I'm going to say it because it has to be said. And I think we've gotten to this point of where we are because that's been people's sense of normalcy, by not being able, willing, and open to be able to say what needs to be said. And I think that's where we even talk when we say white silence is violence, because even white people have not said anything. They have not spoken up. Or when they did, it was to silence another person of color that was in the room. And that's not going to happen no more. 2020, if it isn't presenting anything else, we ain't taking none of this stuff no more. Because we didn't want to be at home, but we had to be at home, so we did it. But we're not going to take this situation and we're not going to take it sitting down no more. We're going to do whatever needs to be done to make sure that, you know, our voices are lifted and that we are empowering each other, empowering ourselves. And so I challenge, call to action to any woman, any brother who is listening, still listening to this Zoom call, that insert yourself the way that you need to insert yourself. Make sure that when you leave that room, I don't care if it's a boardroom, I don't care if it's a break room, and make sure they understand the value of why you're there. People often will question why. I have people that question to this day, why the senator, why she bet on you? Because she know betting on me is going to get a good return back for her and everybody. And because I deserve to be there. Why wouldn't I deserve to be there? I earned the right to be there. I earned to be the right in any space that I occupy, because I know what I bring when I bring to the table when I walk in. And so that's the energy that I ask and I call to anybody to say to yourselves, don't question yourself, don't doubt yourself. Do the work, educate yourself, make sure that you have the knowledge to be present, be there, but then do it. Just show up and show, when you know you show up, you're going to show out. And just do what needs to be done. And at the end of the day, I still believe, through all this rage, through all this anger, I still believe that right will pay out. We will see that. We will see the justice that we have been seeking for. We just have to continue to stay focused, keep our eyes on the prize, and understand that we are not each other's enemy. So that part too of not tearing each other down as Black people, that we have to continue to uplift one another, because it's so much, obviously we know it's so much that is happening to us. We can't be that is happening to us. We have to encourage one another, and we have to speak a word for one another. And if you get some, if I get some, we both get some. It's going to be beneficial for us. So recognizing that we have to coexist. And if they don't see that we're united and that we're together, that we got everything on the right front, then heck, the enemy is always going to find a way to conquer and divide. And so we give them an opening to be able to do that. So that's the call to action that I want to present to all of us, even to myself, to continue that energy.
And just one word of encouragement that I want to offer. I have my pen on today. It's a Maya Angelou quote, and it says that you may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. And I think we all need to keep that in mind during this time, and to know that, yes, the struggle is real, the fight continues, but we have to continue to do it.
Thank you, Dorinthia. TJ?
I guess just kind of understanding that we all have different tactics, but at the end of the day, we are trying to accomplish the same thing, and being mindful of not getting in the way of each other doing that. Just because something looks different from what you may do, just know that we're all headed towards the same direction. And also to Tiffany's point about being comfortable, finding your place, finding your role. I mean, obviously there's so many different aspects of what needs to be done, whether it's at the legislation, policy level, community level, your own household, but whatever and however you decide to position yourself, make sure that you are utilizing your voice. One of my mentors once told me, as I was transitioning into leadership positions, is if you're not going to use your voice, then get up from the table and let someone else have that seat. So as you sit in your positions, make sure that you are present, make sure that you're speaking up, make sure that you are owning who you are, bringing all of your positionality into the role, because that's who you are, and that's why you have that. And then I think, just generally speaking, for Black women, the self-care piece, we hold so much on ourselves, and making sure that we find that time to care and nurture our bodies and our spirits, because again, we're in this for the long run, not gonna be something that happens overnight. So making sure that we're intentional about caring for ourselves, as we are the ones who carry so much and care for so many others.
Thank you, TJ. Any other last thoughts? I am so glad we did this. And I'm sure that I saw somebody in the comments say, this conversation gave me life today. And Bethany and I were talking about hoping that it would be cathartic and therapeutic. And that was my hope. And I feel like it was, you know, just hearing you all speak, it really encouraged me and reinforced a lot of the things that I'm thinking. The attendees that are left are in the chat now, thanking all the panelists. Please, I encourage you, if you're still left here with us, go right into the chat and send your love notes. I'll just wrap by saying, you know, the projects that you all are working on, and I encourage you to use your voice when everything that you're learning here is just heightening your sensitivity to what it feels like to be somebody else. That's all these Race Bridge conversations are about. It's what does it feel like to experience these things and go through the world as someone different than who you are, and looking different than how you look. And the fact that we all have to care, because if you're human, we should care about each other. So use your voice, use the things that you're learning, your participation in this conversation, allow it to continue to heighten just your sensitivity about other people's perspectives and lives, and speak up for us, and we'll continue to speak up for you. And I mean, who knows how long it'll take, but we're hoping that we make some strides in this generation and we do our own work. So thank you all for being here as participants doing your work. I think you did a good job today listening to all of us, and all the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and being so transparent. And this conversation also gave me life. So thank you guys.
Corey Joe, I just want to thank you too for your commitment and your courage to elevate our voices and create such an authentic platform to bring us all together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anytime Corey Joe call, I'm coming.
Listen.
So it don't matter.
It could be in Anchorage, Alaska, and I'll be like, let me get my snow boots.
I'm coming.
And we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna
do it.
Yes, we are. We love you, Corey.
I love you too.
Ladies,
Thank you so much.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.